Rob Rossen, it's a pleasure to have you here on the Simplifying Entrepreneurship podcast today.
Yeah, it's awesome to chat as well.
Yeah, and I'm excited to talk about running remote. I mean, COVID, all the stuff that's going on, and down in Australia, much like here in Canada, I think we've had a few more restrictions than some of the other areas, in particular the US, but some of the other areas around. And, you know, we've been forced to run remote in a lot of cases with a lot of businesses. And now, as we were just chatting a little bit, as businesses start to re-enter a little bit, there's this hybrid of running completely remote or running partially remote, all these different things. But I'm excited to talk about running remote, how we can have that remote side of our business honed in, really, nailed down so that we're getting the best out of everything around that, and our employees are too, so they're enjoying working from home, and they're actually being very productive with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were forced into it, but they didn't really fully implement it in the way that the company's been doing it for 10 years and that have best practices. Like for
Exactly.
me, the most important or benefit for business owners of remote work is that you can hire people remotely in multiple locations. So if you're in one city, right, that's quite limited. Like even
Yeah.
if you're in a big city like New York or LA, it's
Hmm.
actually very limited when you compare to the whole of the US plus Canada. Or
Yeah.
then you say, well, why is it just US and Canada? Why don't we go to Argentina and as well? And why don't we go
Yeah.
to Central America? Maybe even go to, Asia. So when you open it up to that, you have so much more talent. You can sometimes get more inexpensive talent. You can get better talent. Like it's just that opens things up a lot.
Yeah, it really does. And I mean, we use outsourced partners helping us do some of the things that we do, even with simplifying entrepreneurship, even with this podcast, right? And I just the ability to do that and have those people on my team reduces so much frustration, so much work, so much effort, and it's been a learning process for me along the way too, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so hard to hire in the US and Canada and Australia also.
Oh yeah,
The labor market's really tight, and so sometimes if you're searching only there, I mean, obviously for certain areas, the best talent might be in the US. So you have to, if you're hiring a salesperson and you're selling to US customers, you probably want someone in the US. Like you don't want to
yeah,
hire another country, but in a lot of other cases, it makes sense to hire in other countries.
yeah, for sure. Leading remotely, you use the word asynchronously, and why don't
Yeah.
you? Why don't you? I mean, I love asynchronous communication, and I get it, but some of our listeners may not understand what asynchronous communication is. Why don't you tell them a little bit about asynchronous communication, and then dig in why it's so beneficial?
So when we were writing the book, we actually interviewed these top companies that have been doing remote work for many years, like 10 years, and not just with one or two staff, but with hundreds and some of them thousands and thousands of staff. So GitLab, as an example, they're a multi-billion dollar company. They have thousands of staff and they don't have an office. They're literally all working from home. So these guys know what they're doing as far as remote work. And the thing that was really in common is this asynchronous work. And asynchronous work means that instead of just having a meeting all the time over Zoom or Google Hangouts or whatever you use, you actually have a communication style where you send a message, you give the person time to when in their own time, so it doesn't interrupt them, right? So they're doing their work, and they can, when they're ready, they listen to the messages and they respond. Obviously, that doesn't work for everything. Like some things, you need to have those meetings and synchronous
For
work,
sure.
but the people that get into they were forced into remote work from COVID, they tended to just do everything with meetings, and that's their only tool. But the
Mhm.
async communication is a really important tool, and multiple ways of doing it as well. Like it's the video, it's audio async, it's like also the text as well.
Yeah, I mean, a couple async tools that we use in our business. I love Voxer, and Voxer is one of the ones that we use just to chat back and forth, um, and it's audio. And one of the ones that I use a lot is Loom, and
Mm.
I love Loom. I'm not sure, Rob, some of the ones that you like to use within your business and stuff too, but Loom has just been such a great tool for me. I'm an audio guy. I like to talk things as opposed to
Mm,
type them. So if I can
mm,
just click the button and talk, as opposed to whether that's audio through Voxer through my phone or whether it's video through Loom, I send a ton of Looms every day. And I like one of the things
yeah.
I like is that whoever's on the other side can now listen to it, absorb it, listen to it again, and then give it some thought and then come back to it and then give a really good answer, as
Mm,
opposed to when you call and interrupt them in the middle of whatever they're focused on. You're calling and interrupting them and saying, hey, can you help me out here? Now you've taken them out of focus time, and they probably haven't given enough thought to what you're actually going to say, so you're not even going to get the best answer.
yeah. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I love this Voxer, which I haven't actually used, but I like the idea behind it where you're sending the audio message. Now, it
Hmm.
can be kind of real time, so you can send it and then you can send it back, but you
Yes,
can send it and then if the other person's busy, they can wait a few minutes, they can wait a few hours even, and then they can
exactly.
send their message back. But I
Yeah.
also love for business owners, I think that text is kind of really inefficient. Like it just takes a
Yeah.
long time to write. Maybe for your employees, if you they might want to, you'd want to see the actual text. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
easier to read it, but
Yes.
for sending it, it's so much easier. Just go bang 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 bang. So
Yeah,
and
and I mean
do it with your
you
voice.
can text through Voxer, and you can transcribe through
Right,
Voxer too. So it's really,
right,
you can do any of them. It's just one of the tools that
yeah,
we picked up a few years ago and have found to be really helpful for our internal asynchronous communication.
yeah, great, yeah.
One of the things that I want to dig into a little bit here, Rob, is how do you identify what mistakes you're currently making now when you manage, like for those that are managing remote workers? How do they identify? Some of them have never done this before. Some of them have been doing it for 1 or 2 years now and still don't really know the proper ways of doing this. So how do they
Mm.
dig down into that and maybe find out a little bit more about what they could be doing better?
Yeah, the key ingredient is the level of meetings and the type of meetings that you have. So you want to make sure that you're having the right number of meetings with the right people. And we have a structure we use actually, EOS. You might have
Hmm.
heard of that entrepreneur operating system. So we
Yeah,
use the meeting structure. There you
my
go.
book Traction right behind
So
me.
right, yeah.
Yeah,
So we use that structure, which is fantastic. But
it
we
is.
also have a no meetings week once a month, and we're
Hmm.
doing that to really make sure that we're not doing too many meetings. So we're making sure that we're having that right balance of the communication that's sort of face to face via video versus the not interrupting people. Like when it gets to this like 10 hours, 20 hours of meetings a week, you're probably not in the right direction there. So you have to have that balance. So that's really important. And then also, how do you get culture remotely? That people are a bit worried about that. Like, is it
Oh yeah.
possible to even have a remote culture? So there's a lot of things we do to constantly reinforce culture and to reinforce what is the mission and the vision. And we have an all hands meeting. We have little breakout groups. We use Zoom for that, where you can have a breakouts.
Hmm.
3 or 4 people chatting in groups, and so there's a lot of things that we do to try and improve culture and get people more connected in the company.
Yeah, one of the things that I've heard a fair bit through the last couple of years is sort of miss the hallway chatter, and we miss the water cooler chat and the lunchroom
Yeah.
chat and some of those things. And are you hearing that too, Rob?
Yeah, they're definitely, but well, we're so remote that nobody misses anything because they never had it in the first place. But
Yeah,
uh, uh, people in my leadership team, I actually just met them recently because COVID is now a bit
yeah,
over, and so we were allowed to go and meet in person. But yeah, absolutely, that is the main thing that's really missing from remote work is that in person feeling. Because we actually are, as human beings, we're meant to be in person, I would say.
yeah, yeah.
And so you want to have, if possible, several meetings a year, like 2, 3 meetings a year in person where you get that connection and you have a deep dive connection. You do some fun events, like you just get to know each other really well. In those 2 to 3 times a year, you can actually get more connection than you do in the like 5 minutes, 10 minutes here and there, or a few after work drinks in the office. So you can definitely get it done if you have some in-person meetings.
Yeah, I love that, and it's I think it's a big part of culture too, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, Rob, tell me, what can you specifically do in the next 90 days to implement asynchronous management?
So I would want to make sure that you have some tools that you and your team are completely trained in that allow you to do the following. First of all, you need asynchronous text communication, which is the easiest one. It's like email or Slack and so on. Then you need asynchronous audio communication, which we talked about Voxer. You can do it on Slack as well, the audio, but you need to start practicing it because the habit might be
Mhm.
just to type, 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 type. Once you get into the habit of the audio, it gets really efficient and great. Thirdly, asynchronous video. So if you want to praise someone via asynchronously, you want to actually do it via video because it falls flat if you just type, "Oh, great job there," and like, okay, yeah, sure. But if you actually send them a video, and it's so personal, it
It
feels
is.
great, and the person hears that video of how they've done a great job. And then the last thing that you want to do is also have a tool such as Loom, where you actually record the screen. So this is for training people on how to actually go and do things on the screen, or whether it's using a particular tool, etc. And then you can use that video that you recorded as a training tool later on. So all of those four methodologies of asynchronous communication: text, audio, video, and the recording your screen. Make sure that you practiced it yourself at least 5 times in the next 90 days, and your team, each person has practiced it at least 5 times in the next 90 days. If you do that, you'll be well on the way to great strategies for asynchronous work.
Awesome. That's a great takeaway and something that people can do right after they get off this episode. So, Rob, it's been great chatting here, and I want to give everybody an opportunity, and we'll put it in the show notes as well. But give everybody an opportunity. How do they want to connect with you, or how can they connect with you to get your book and maybe to find out more about your business, Time Doctor?
Yeah, so you can check out the website Running Remote, which is our conference, and also the book. So the book you can just search on Amazon for Running Remote, and launching in August 2022. And you also can check out timedoctor.com, which is our time tracking and productivity tool for remote teams.
Awesome. Thanks so much for being here with me today on the Simplifying Entrepreneurship podcast, Rob.
Thank you.